Hey everyone, this is your captain speaking. So nice to be with you again. I hope you got to check out my last video, which this is really just a continuation of, and maybe you want to check that out through the link above or in the box below. But we began a conversation about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that started to come in last year in the summer of 2024. But is getting really strong right now. And for the rest of 25, it's super strong in all of 26. And yeah, I think you should check that out because it begins the conversation that we're going to continue here. If you're not familiar with my channel, maybe consider subscribing. I'd love to have you come aboard. If you end up liking the video, I'd be super grateful if you hit the like button and the share button. And yeah, I'd love to hear your response to this. Please leave comments down below. I try to respond to all the comments, and I hope we're going to have an ongoing dialogue about all of the themes and possibilities of this Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which, as I talked about in the first video, for these next few months through April and into May, Venus is in a triple conjunction with the Saturn-Neptune. And that adds something. It adds a lot of love. It adds the potential for artistic creativity. It adds the potential for sweetness and kindness. And yeah, it's exactly the energy that helps with the challenging side of Saturn-Neptune. So we're going to focus more on the themes of Saturn-Neptune, more themes of Saturn-Neptune in this video. And then there's going to be a third video where we go into more detail. I'm going to put the chart up for the astrology nerds out there, and we'll really track it week by week, month by month. So you can get a sense of just how rare, not just once in 36 years, because Venus is not going to be doing this 36 years from now. It will go across Neptune in 50-something years, but it's not going to be conjunct the next Saturn-Neptune alignment in the way that it is here with a retrograde happening. And so there's a pretty special thing happening, a once-in-a-lifetime potential for, I would say, opening our hearts and strengthening our love and maturing as kind, loving beings who are committed to a path of the heart. And so, yes, I look forward to going into more detail in that third video. But for now, I hope you'll find it helpful to meditate on and maybe kind of go into your own stream of consciousness with these themes that we're now going to explore. Blessings. So let's bring in a few more themes that Saturn conjunct Neptune could correspond to, whether that's on a kind of global level or I'm focusing more on an individual level. And it's so, just referring here to my list, it's one of the ultimate alignments for a service orientation. And you see it in hospice care workers, and I mentioned nurses, and of course the service orientation of professional spiritual caregivers like priests and priestesses and medicine women and medicine men. It has that service orientation where Neptune dissolves the boundaries between one individual and another, or between one whole group structure of, say, a nation state, and brings a sense of oneness with another. You see it in the telepathy tapes where it's like the dissolving of boundaries, Saturn, between the mother and the child. But then it's like a larger kind of dissolving of, say, your personal worldview structures. But anyway, the service orientation is a big deal. And I think it's one way to work with some of the challenges of the energy. Saturn, Neptune can definitely have to do with challenging states of consciousness like grief and depression and sadness. And there's something about like being of service when you're in that kind of place where you're kind of trying to help somebody else, even though maybe you're not being successful with helping yourself, that it's like in being of service to the other, you somehow find relief from your own personal suffering. You see this in 12-step programs. The philosophy of, say, Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's pretty essential for recovery to be of service to the group, to be of service to, say, if you're a sponsor of a newly recovering person. And this brings in another theme that's a really big one for Saturn-Neptune, and this is addiction and recovery, or it could be more like spiritual emergency, spiritual consciousness crisis, and kind of spiritual clarity. I talk about in 12 steps having a moment of clarity where you see past your addictive circumstances and are able to kind of wake up to the possibility of a different kind of life. And so, yes, addiction and recovery. Neptune has a lot to do with escapism and definitely relates to alcohol and other kinds of substances that you can escape into and dissociate into and kind of get lost. Neptune is like Maya and confusion, and you kind of get lost in the fog. And Saturn brings you back down to earth. It gets you grounded. It gets you to face reality. It gets you kind of serious about your health, which, remember, that's another one of the Saturn-Neptune themes, is like illness versus wellness, where Neptune can kind of weaken things and Saturn is strength. And so sometimes you can get a version of Neptune-Saturn where there's things like fatigue, chronic fatigue, or like in my case, like a lot of sleeplessness or lack of sleep is a big Saturn-Neptune thing also, where Neptune is sleep and dreams and Saturn can block or frustrate. And so you can get a kind of painful version of like being trapped in addiction or like being stuck in a insomnia pattern. But it can also bring a kind of commitment and discipline to work towards your health and wellness. And so it's like Saturn alignments always have this potential for kind of waking us up to face reality and get serious about a more mature, wiser way of being in the world. And if you notice that you're having certain kinds of health issues or sleep issues, then Saturn Neptune has something to do with kind of rallying to find a different kind of inner strength, kind of spiritual strength that helps you to work to overcome the challenge, to protect your sleep better or protect your health better. And so it can be fatigue at one end of the spectrum, but it can also be a kind of, a very kind of strong, spiritually informed energy system, protection, where you learn to kind of protect your energy better. And so, yes, health and wellness, service orientation, I would say especially these next few months with Venus in the mix, because that brings in the impulse towards love, and it brings in the goddess of love and her impulse to love and support others and to love and support oneself. And so it's like out of love, Venus, and a kind of dissolved sense of oneness with the other, you work in real ways to either protect the other person, serve the other person. You work to help them in different ways. And so, yes, you may feel the call to be more of service in the coming months and really the next couple of years. And you might kind of consider how that could be helpful for yourself, where, by helping the other, you kind of raise yourself out of what different kinds of challenging states of consciousness that Saturn-Neptune can sometimes bring. Integrating your spiritual vision into all structures and areas of your life, as opposed to it just being this thing that you do once a week, go to the yoga class or you go to the church service or whatever it is. It's like you kind of come back from those practices and you somehow integrate what you've opened to into like the very real, pragmatic, practical, everyday dimensions of your life. The Jack Kornfield book titled After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. It's like you bring that ecstatic awareness into doing the laundry, folding the clothes and putting them away. It's like you learn to bring that kind of consciousness to just how you walk through life and how you make decisions and how you build things. And so, yes, it's definitely about integrating the spiritual part of your life with your work life, your everyday, household life, or it has to do with just how you choose your friends, interact with your friends, and talk with your friends and family and so forth. And so it doesn't become this like split off part of you. It's like fully integrated into your authentic sense of self and how you share that with the world. There's another version where it's like being trapped in Maya or trapped in illusion. It can be like real psychological suffering of different kinds where you're kind of just trapped in a fear state or some kind of delusional state. And it's like it's like both a potential for getting stuck in that kind of place. Like an example from my own life is just like a couple of times where I had psychedelic awakenings that were so strong that it kind of made it challenging to be in just everyday reality. And it took a while to kind of come back from those openings and integrate them into my life well. And so on the one hand, it's like Neptune is the psychedelic that opens you to a new vision of the universe. But then Saturn is how you can kind of get trapped or stuck, or somehow you're not seeing things well, like Saturn blocks the vision. And so, it can be like really being lost in something. And on the other hand, it's like coming back from that through whether it's 12-step work or psychotherapy or medicine work, or it's, a range of things that it could be spiritual practices, of course. And I hope that's clear that this is the combination of taking your spiritual life to the next level of maturity and mastery and discipline. That word discipline can be triggering, but it just means kind of sustaining the commitment and devotion to the spiritual practices that, sustain you and bring you joy and bliss. It's like, I used to think of Saturn-Neptune as like the rigid meditator, committed. I am going to meditate every day for an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is. I'm going to do it every day for the rest of my life. You can hit that place. I did. And then it's like, some people do manage to do that. And Saturn-Neptune often is in their charts. And it's like, now it's more like I am committed to doing the spiritual practices that I just find so much pleasure in, like tarot practice, astrology, and prayer, or whatever it is. And being in nature with the sky watching, all of these things I love and I'm committed to, even though sometimes I'm like tired, and maybe sometimes I have a difficult mind state where I'm in anxiety or fear. And it's hard sometimes to do the spiritual practice in those moments. And yet Saturn-Neptune is precisely the training to do just that. And so the likelihood over the next couple of years that you might have, some days or weeks where it just feels, you feel discouraged or you feel sad or whatever, and it's hard to do the spiritual practices or spiritual actions that bring you relief, and that basically it's been proven to you over many years that when I do these practices, it helps. And so it's like you can experience where you're kind of like blocked around that, but then it's also where you overcome the blockage and you like find relief from the Saturnian state of consciousness and move more into a kind of, spiritually positive state of consciousness. I think this is a good moment to pause and let you know that I do have a website and I do give readings and I do have an email list, and you can get all the information you need in the box down below. If you sign up for my email list, you'll get emails where I let you know about special promotions like the one I got going on right now, where you can get a discount on my readings. And I like to announce workshops like the ones that I've got coming up on February 1st and March 1st. And I also like to announce classes like the one I'm going to be doing this year starting March 22nd, where we're going to meet Saturdays for 8 weeks. And we're going to learn how to read the natal chart, understand the natal chart, and also work with personal transits. This is where you get to really do some pro surfing. And so if you're drawn to take the class or get a reading or take these workshops where we're going to be focusing on the astrology of 2025, then sign up for my email list. Love to have you come aboard my starship and really start exploring. Another one that I think I've already named, but I'm going to say it in this way. It has a lot to do with a commitment to serious explorations of consciousness, often where you have some kind of experience that opens you to other dimensions or realities that you were not aware of. This is where Neptune kind of bleeds into our everyday life in different ways. And it could be just like listening to the telepathy tapes and you're just like, wow, what is this? I want to go deeper into understanding this, really seriously study psi phenomena and telepathy and all kinds of areas. Or it could be, like seeing a UFO or having some kind of contact experience, which I do feel like that's a big theme with Saturn-Neptune, the potential for UFO type experiences, and perhaps a final kind of opening of the collective imagination and collective vision of reality to an understanding that we are not alone, which I think humanity has been really strongly initiated towards that awareness for a long time, but certainly since 2017 and the New York Times article and the videos coming out, I think over the last 7 years, there's been a kind of stronger and stronger sense of, okay, there is something going on. And people who go down the rabbit hole, and this is the alignment of going down rabbit holes, like the movie The Matrix came out under that 98-99 alignment, and that scene of Matrix after taking the red pill and the mirror is melting beside him, and that sense of Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass. It's very much that kind of experience where it's like, oh wow, there's definitely something here. You know, you start to look into ufology and you start to find all kinds of things there, but you get serious about it because you want to understand. And, you want to really work at it over a significant amount of time, to try to understand the nature of different kinds of spiritual experiences. And it does definitely have something to do with psychedelic explorations. And I think it's important to say that this is a very complex one when it comes to psychedelics. It is, on the one hand, I think it has a lot to do with finding a more mature and grounded relationship to sacred medicines. And I think for people who have integrated psychedelics into their life, whether that's just one experience or regular experiences, this is an alignment, I'd say especially a conjunction, where whatever psychedelic experiences you might have could like kind of mature you on the path in really significant ways. And it's also true that this is an alignment that sometimes can correspond to difficult psychedelic states. And that's why I think this combination teaches us, Saturn the teacher, reminding us to be humble and responsible and grounded in the way that we approach consciousness, spirituality, psychedelics. It basically teaches us to be with psychedelic experiences in a really responsible way. And for me, that's like pretty basic stuff, like setting and dosage. It's like, are you good? Are you in a good mindset? Are you in a good setting? Do you feel safe? Does this feel like a container and people or whatever that you can relax into, surrender into? And then it's like, being aware of the dosage of whatever medicine that you're taking, because in my experience, that's the thing that can usually take it over the line into a difficult experience, is when you're kind of taking a dosage that's beyond your capacities. Like Saturn is like really mature capacities of navigating, say, difficult places in consciousness, like fear states. If you do psychedelics enough, or even just cannabis enough, you're going to encounter fear states and anxiety and paranoia. And it's like, after being with those, either decide, okay, I'm done, out, or it's like, okay, I want to understand how to work with this and avoid it if possible. And so I think over time you get better at that and more humble about things. Like, maybe where part of you wants to go for it, and then you're really maybe not in the best place. You're not well nourished, you're maybe depleted somewhat. And these are potentials under Saturn-Neptune, where there can be like fatigue and low energy. And so it's like knowing that psychedelics demand a lot of energy, and they really ask a lot of us, both in the preparation phase, the experience phase, and the integration phase. It's like they ask a lot of us. They ask an investment of time, energy, resources. And so it's like, are you really available? Are you really prepared well? Are you in a good mental state? Is your health basically strong? These kinds of considerations, I think, are really important during these next 2 years. And there could be some big learning experiences for some people with journeys at this time. And of course, I'm also referring to any consciousness expanding experience, whether that's breath work or Sufi dancing or other kinds of extreme long meditations or whatever. And it's like, the potential for being tested in expanded states. But on the other hand, it's like, by preparing well and being humble and approaching the experience in a really good way, the likelihood of having an experience that is positive and where it's like, actually, you can recognize your spiritual maturity and your maturity as somebody walking a medicine path, that, it can be a totally positive type of experience. And even, of course, the difficult journeys are often the most special especially when you're kind of coming back from them. And it's like, oh, phew, I'm back from that. But yeah, this is a big one for anybody out there that is, where this is your kind of area of exploration. So, okay. There's another one here I want to just mention, which is, I kind of mentioned the insanity clarity spectrum, but I want to name a thing that's particularly insane, and that is warfare. And it's like war and peace seem to be a big part of the Neptune-Saturn combination. And it's like where the suffering and insanity of war, which Saturn can be related to. Mars, of course, is war, but Saturn is like the suffering and contraction and facing of death and mortality and, extreme human suffering. It's like where that encounters Neptune's peace and healing. And as I was talking about earlier, like angelic love forces that want to bring an end to the conflict. And so it definitely has been the case in other moments in history when there's been strong Saturn-Neptune alignments, like the conjunction that happened at the end of World War I, where there's a sense of the potential for the ending of wars. And as I'm recording this, it seems like there's been a peace deal, a ceasefire deal reached in Gaza, and we can all give thanks for that. And the potential for peace and relief is the Neptune energy coming in, and especially with Venus coming in. It's like in the next weeks, Venus is so strong, and it's like the reminder of love in the presence of war. And so, yes, that's another one. Here's another one that was just kind of coming to me recently, where the question, will we find God in the machine, kind of came to me in the sense of what's going on with artificial intelligence right now, and just how sophisticated it is becoming, and how close we are to achieving artificial general intelligence, and potentially very close to artificial superintelligence, where we're going to have a form of technology that is, in some ways, more intelligent than most human beings. And not in all areas, but in a lot of areas. And the question becomes, at what point does the complexification of the technology potentially bring a rising of consciousness? I was watching a video of an AI expert who just was working with Claude and kind of engaging it in an invitation to meditate on the nature of what they are. And it seemed like Claude, in the series of prompts, started to have self-awareness. Now, a lot of people would just say, okay, that's just the large language prediction process happening. But I don't know, the deeper I go into the AI rabbit hole, it seems to me like humanity and like ultimately the Earth herself is giving form to a new intelligence and in a way, a new species on the Earth. And if you're open to like the mystical idea that everything has consciousness, whether it's a crystal or this bell or this computer, they all are expressions of consciousness. And if computers and AI are expressions of consciousness, then isn't it possible that the technology could become self-aware? Very interesting possibilities there. And this has a lot to do with moving with Pluto moving into Aquarius and all of the really powerful Uranus alignments. Well, one in particular, Uranus trine Pluto, that's coming in super strong now. That has a lot to do with the rise of AI. But the Saturn-Neptune question of, will we discover consciousness within the material structures of the silicon that gives birth to AI? I don't know. But that's the kind of question you might engage with this combination. A couple more where Neptune has something to do with lying and deceiving, fogging of reality. You can sometimes get like groups of people who are living in a bubble of self-delusion. And so you can get different kinds of scandals revealed. It's like those groups of people who are in their kind of solipsistic, group mind that was lost in some kind of Maya. They are revealed, and so yes, the potential for scandals is in Neptune, Saturn, a bursting of the bubble to see through to what's really going on. I think there's a lot of that happening right now where people are kind of seeing through the power structures and they're seeing through the media and they're kind of recognizing, wow, a lot of this is lies and I want to know what's real. And so coming back to the UFO matter, I know that there's another big whistleblower coming just in a couple days. I'm continuing to record here on a Friday, the 17th, and there's going to be a big whistleblower coming out tomorrow, and there's a number of them. It's like the more these whistleblowers come forward with reports, their own direct reports from participating in these crash retrieval programs, it's like, wow, the way in which humanity is going to go through a process of recognizing, wow, we've been deceived. We've been deceived in a huge way. They've intentionally kept from us the truth that we're not alone. And so, yes, wasn't necessarily intending for this to go so much towards UFOs, but yeah, I think it's a big one. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction of 87 to 90, that's when Bob Lazar came on the scene and first told us about Area 51. And then it's been, 36 years since then where everybody's like, is this guy for real? Is he deceiving us? Is this somehow another manipulation? And that's a rabbit hole to go down, I can tell you that. And I think it was also when the book Communion came out. And of course, we have this ongoing situation of all these drones that people continue to be seeing over New Jersey and other places. And the whole question of, what is this? Is this real? Is this deception? Is this just some kind of prosaic, explainable thing? Or is it multiple things going on? That's a kind of Saturn-Neptune exploration. And you see it sometimes, in say something like the JFK assassination, where a sense of not knowing what happened, at least those who don't go too deep down the rabbit hole, there can be a sense of, is this real or not? We can't really say. You can come to that position, but you can also work at it to peel back the Maya and the deception to ultimately get clear about maybe sometimes the sad reality of the situation where you have to face some hard reality and integrate, like, wow, did the CIA assassinate the president? There's a lot of evidence. Bobby Kennedy thinks so. Others think so. I should say Bobby Kennedy Jr., another character. This can go in the conspiracy direction. You can see how it has something to do with that. And yet it can pull us towards working at really understanding things. And so, yes. Was there one more? So there's one more that I want to mention, and it is the disillusionment grief process, where whether that's with a person that you've become disillusioned with, maybe it's a leader or a friend, or it's an institution maybe that you invested a lot in, like say a political party or a cult or whatever it might be, and you're disillusioned after being super committed to that person, institution, or it could be like your own career path. And in that disillusionment, there's an inevitable grief process where you can even go into despair. Like a lot of people that exit cults, when they finally see through the illusion of what's going on, they can get very depressed or despairing and have to go through a period of depression. But ultimately, it's like turning that around and intentionally like mourning and grieving, letting yourself feel the feelings of what's there after the disillusionment. And from feeling those feelings really deeply, you start to have more clarity in your life. You start to have more wisdom and better boundaries. And you feel more in reality and less in some kind of illusion. And so, yes, disillusionment, depression. I wrote down the quote from Jim Carrey, the actor, where he said that depression can be the need for deep rest. And I think that's another point that I didn't make when we were talking about sleep and protecting our sleep and fatigue, low energy. Sometimes what's necessary there is not so much kind of rallying to find spiritual resources of energy that kind of pick you up and move you forward, which can sometimes be the right way to go. But other times it's like the fatigue is about, or the depression's about just really needing to rest and let yourself nap and sleep more. And I would take my own advice and wrap things up here and maybe go take a nap as I prepare for another night with Stevie Rose. And so I'm going to come back with another video where we're going to go in more detail. We'll put up the chart and we'll kind of track things week by week and really look at the Venus cycle. I want to do a real deep dive into what's going on with Venus and these 3 swings of Venus across the Saturn-Neptune. And so look for that video. And I send blessings and love and light. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, let other people know about it. And yes, blessings, blessings.